This is the podcast that must not be named. A chapter-by-chapter, spoiler-free, mostly reread podcast of the Harry Potter series with an engineer, Luke, and a math teacher, Melissa. Listen to this not-named podcast and all of the shows at thepodcastthat.com on Radio Public. It's free, easy to use, and helps listeners like you find and support shows like ours. When you listen to our shows on Radio Public's Android or iOS app, everyone benefits. Let's start the show.
Well, hello, and welcome back to the podcast that must not be named. I am mostly Luke.
I am all of Melissa.
And we, here together, are doing chapter number 14 of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, The Unforgivable Curses. This chapter was 19 pages, and that is 2.59% of this book.
For some reason, Snape is a nightmare of a teacher to everybody, even making Neville spend an afternoon disemboweling horned frogs, and Harry gets the feeling he's a bit timid around Professor Moody. Thursday comes and the fourth-year Gryffindors finally get a class with Professor Moody, who laments that the class is up to date on dark creatures, but are severely lacking when it comes to curses, and that he only has 1 year to get them up to speed and to teach them that they must have, always, constant vigilance. He tells them that he and Dumbledore have discussed it, and they are old enough to learn what they are truly up against. He brings out 3 spiders, which causes Ron a small panic, and asks the class what the Unforgivable Curses are. Ron first to answer with the Imperious Curse, which causes complete control of the victim. Neville tells the second, the Cruciatus Curse, which causes immense pain, and Hermione answers with the third and final, Avada Kedavra, the Killing Curse. Each time Moody demonstrated the curse on a spider, and as Moody stood in front of Harry, he explains that only one person had ever survived the Avada Kedavra, and that person was sitting right in front of him. After class, Moody, due to a negative reaction during the Cruciatus Curse, brings Neville back into his office for some tea and to share a herbology book with him. That night, Harry and Ron finish their divination homework, making up horrible scenes due to the planets, as Fred and George quietly pore over a piece of parchment. Hermione comes in with a box of badges, all with SPEW all over them. Hedwig turns up finally with a response from Sirius, who tells Harry that because of his scar hurting and other odd signs, he was coming back to the country and will be in touch. Harry, worried about what he had caused by telling his godfather about his scar, heads to bed, where he doesn't realize he's not the only one laying awake.
Now, I didn't really see any new character introductions. I didn't see any new location introductions. This is kind of all at school, all people we've either met or heard of before. But I did see quite a bit magicabulary-wise. Melissa, why don't you kick us off here?
So I'm going to start with the book, The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection.
Okay, yep.
Big fan of that. We had a scouring charm.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go with 2 others that I really liked. Engorgio and Reducio.
Okay, make
get
things
big, get little.
Make things not big.
Very Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Wonderlandy of them. What else did you see?
So we have the Unforgivable Curses themselves and the title of this trio of awful curses. The Imperious Curse and the incantation Imperio that goes along with it. The Cruciatus Curse and Crucio. And the Killing Curse, Avada Kedavra.
I'm glad I'm just like a computer screen away and not like really close, because I'm afraid you could hurt me with that one.
Yeah, well, I'd probably only give you a bloody nose, so.
That's true.
I also don't have a wand here, so you're probably
well, then I'm okay.
Safe.
All right. Whew, worried. We should have put like a warning on this episode.
Trigger alert if you're afraid of dying from the Killing Curse via podcast. Yeah.
Warning.
Not suitable for people who are afraid of it.
So we also had the Magical Water Plants of the Mediterranean book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It sounded like it was pretty interesting for Neville. So
for Neville.
Yeah.
Maybe not anybody else, but that's all right.
We also have Spew, and yes, I will call it Spew, not SPEW, for the Society for the Promotion of Elvish Welfare.
Okay, I'm going to go with this one. Are you ready?
Okay.
We have the STOAOFMCCCTLS.
Yeah, I saw that in there.
It's the Stop the Outrageous Abuse of Our Fellow Magical Creatures and Campaign for a Change in Their Legal Status.
You killed it. Did you practice on that? Did you warm up on that?
I did. I did some like vocal scales.
La 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 la.
A-I-O-U.
Right. And sometimes why.
There's a picture we have to look at now.
All right.
And I remembered.
Yeah, you did. Look at that. You're on fire.
This is true, but don't set me on fire with any kind of... I guess setting somebody on fire must not be unforgivable.
Yeah, no, you can incendio people left and right. That's
cool.
That's fine.
Totally forgivable. Not good, but forgivable.
Certainly, no doubt that it is absolutely forgivable. There's no doubt about that.
Eventually.
It's yeah. It's you can be redeemed. How about that?
Like, oh, I set you on fire. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay. Oh man, I did Crucio on you. Nope, I'm sorry. Nope, not okay.
No, we're not friends anymore. Can't be friends anymore. I will not be able. I'm legally obliged to not forgive you. Sorry. I just can't.
Mortal enemy, and like we're roommates or something.
So,
darn it was an accident.
So this picture looks like a big hairy spider in a comic book zap kind of like a graphic.
See, I'm thinking like airborne, flying, dancing, kind of. I don't know. I kind of like this one, even though I don't like spiders or the Unforgivable Curses. Nothing I like is in this picture, yet I like this picture. It's more than the sum of its parts. I don't know.
Yeah, the wand is fine.
The wand's okay. I like the comic book background.
Okay.
A lot.
I feel like you should say bazinga over it.
Or pow.
Right.
Zap.
Yeah.
Whammy.
Exactly.
Where's Adam West when I need him?
Yeah, right. He's got to go climb up that wall.
Oh, those are the best parts of those shows.
That was the best part of those shows.
I don't know. I feel like that could be a whole nother podcast.
Another day.
Because I will say, the villains were amazing.
We'll workshop that one. For more on that, check us out on patreon.com/stayimaginary. And you can help pick what the next podcast we start is.
Oh, goodness.
All right, so I see that you have a few thoughts here.
Just a few.
All right, why don't you go for it?
My first was just a numbers observation. Big fan of numbers, right?
Mm-hmm. That's kind of our thing, right? We have to.
I mean, it's a shtick.
It's a shtick. That's true.
So they've been in school for 3 years and a week.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. In that time, Neville's melted 6 cauldrons.
Yeah.
I feel like that's an exorbitant amount of cauldrons. That's basically 1 a semester, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what is the cost of replacement cauldrons, and if like his grand budgeted for that. Yeah,
I don't know. At least we know he's probably not getting the solid gold ones that Harry was looking at in was that book 1 that Hagrid had to talk him out of getting solid gold.
But at this point, if he's melted 6 pewter cauldrons, don't you think he should step up the make?
Yeah, maybe.
But I guess it's kind of like if your kid keeps breaking their glasses, do you buy them more expensive, less likely to break glasses? Or do you just keep buying them the cheap glasses because they're going to break it anyway? Why would I spend a lot of money on the good thing that might last you a little longer when I'm just going to spend a little bit of money a lot of times?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's glasses is a perfect example of that. Even like sunglasses, like, do I really want to go out and spend, on nice ones that are likely better quality? Yeah, I think it's a really good analogy. I wouldn't qualify gold as a higher quality cauldron specifically, especially for the problem Neville's having. It has a lower melting point.
I'm not saying that the gold one, but
I was just trying to clarify.
Quality.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was just clarifying. He needs a higher tolerance for his.
So do you make it out of concrete?
No,
cement,
cast
which is
iron.
different.
Cast iron.
Okay.
Yeah, cement is just powder. It's adhesive powder. Add water and it gets sticky.
But what happens if you add fire to it? But then the water on the inside of the cement cauldron would be bad, so that wouldn't work either. Okay. Next point. Why is Mad-Eye only going to be at Hogwarts for a year?
He says he's doing it as a special favor
to Dumbledore.
I mean, it sounds like he just kind of doesn't really want to do it. He's just kind of like, here for a year. Then I'm out. I'm bouncing. Like I'm just kind of getting my old friend out of a pinch, and like that's fine. I don't know. Do you have any other better ideas?
Dumbledore just kicks the Defense Against the Dark Arts job down the road 1 more year. Okay,
might as well.
I made it 1 more year. He's literally running out of people.
Yeah. It's like the old Roman general Cincinnatus. They were like, all right, who's basically like the Roman George Washington. Like George Washington, a lot of the heroic things you hear about George Washington, a lot of them are attributed to him through Cincinnatus, an old Roman general who was basically put in charge as a consul, like the in charge of everything while they're at war during the years of the Senate and everything, the Republic, if you will. And there were like a couple times where he was like well off retired. And they were just like, all right, this isn't working. Can we just go get him again for like just one more, just one more, and then we're good. Then you can go retire to your farm, and then like 10 years later, all right, can we just get one more? Because it was so effective. So Moody, highly effective. Dumbledore's just starting to pull the Cincinnatus routine on him, I think.
New warning on the beginning of the show: there's a really old history lesson in there for people who are afraid of those.
There you go. You've been fairly warned after the fact.
I super love the way Mad Eye helped Neville feel better at the end. I know I'm skipping, but that was kind of my other big thing, is I really liked that he recognized that something was going on, and he was like, come here, because, the kids are like, ooh, we got to do something, and like Mad Eye was all over it.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah,
no, it's... You'll notice a theme with most of my notes are big fan of Moody this chapter for me. And
so Luke's got a new man crush. Okay, go.
You can add it to the list of what George Weasley and Lupin. Who else?
Lockhart.
Oh, Lockhart. He's fine. I mean, man, what a guy. It's so easy to just turn it on like that. But yeah.
Let's do some Moody love.
So, Moody love. that sounds like a really bad...
Bill Weasley?
Oh, yeah.
Add him to the list, too.
And Charlie. I think that's fair.
More Bill than Charlie for you.
So Moody, as a very hands-on professor, he just basically walks in and says, you could put those away, those books. You won't need them. I like it.
Those are the most fun classes.
I know, especially this is exactly kind of what we saw with lesson 1 in McGonagall's class of a hands-on practical experience. And then in her case, she was showing, hey, this is what you're going to be working to over time. Mm-hmm. He's doing a very similar thing to basically demoing, okay, these are real things. It's not just theory. Let's start with the practical and then build on it once you actually can see what you're trying to build.
Right. Like, there's a reason for this. Here are the 3 reasons you need this class.
Right. And just overall, highly, highly effective style for this lesson, I think. And I also like his class management. I thought it was pretty well done when he's basically like, kind of going through his whole spiel, the start of the class. And he's like, you need to be alert and watchful. You need to put that away, Miss Brown, when I'm talking. And he wasn't even looking at her. It just, again, kind of sets that tone like McGonagall and Snape did in their very first classes of, there's no messing around in here because I take my job very, very seriously. And because of that, I expect you to.
How do I bottle that and teach that to teachers?
Have them read that chapter from book 1, The Potions Master, chapter 7, and this chapter. That's it.
And then maybe read the first chapter with Lockhart's class in
and
book
say, this
2.
is what you're really working towards.
So strong and weak work. Examples and non-examples.
Don't give the non-examples. You're better off just saying, just emulate this. Let them figure out their own case studies over time. I did like that the line that said Harry felt Ron recoil slightly next to him, that Ron hated spiders. It was just like a real nice, subtle way of kind of bringing that thing that we've seen since book 2 back into it that felt really natural. Again, the overall evolution of JK's writing, I think, has gotten a lot better. The flow of callbacks to things and foreshadowing of things is just up another level in this book, I think.
I agree.
And it's gotten better over time. Like, story-wise, it was always really good. Narrative-wise, it was always really good. But some of it, at times, was a bit clunky and kind of shooing in.
Especially exposition.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of,
Moments
it's very
like
much, here's a spoon, take this information, and eat it. This is more just like, oh, it just kind of naturally flows into what we're seeing. And if you're not looking for it, you just be like, oh, yeah, I know Ron's afraid of spiders. But I just wanted to point out, really well done. Now, according to the Ministry of Magic, I'm supposed to teach you counter curses and leave it at that. I'm not supposed to show you what illegal dark curses look like until you're in the 6th year. You're not supposed to be old enough to deal with it till then. But Professor Dumbledore has got a higher opinion of you, of your nerves. He reckons you can cope, and I say the sooner you know what you're up against, the better. I like this. Like, let them figure out if they're too young. Kind of let them know what they need to know for their own protection. Don't just blanket statement try to protect them because you think it's right. You know what I mean? Like, you got to give them a chance to prove that they're responsible and grown up enough to handle a difficult situation.
Yeah, I agree. I like the idea of it being you're not too young.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay that you're young, but you're not too young. And we don't get to see that a lot.
I know you and I have had a couple discussions on real similar topics for specifically Harry. Like I think maybe it was Mr. Weasley in book 3 with learning about Sirius Black. That it was like it's good that he knows. You give him just enough.
Right.
To kind of test the waters and see where they're at, and kind of depending on their response is how you either take it deeper to help them understand, or you're like, okay, maybe that was kind of where we need to limit it and pull back a bit.
Well, it's like a hinge question. I'm telling you, there's so many teaching moments here. So it's a hinge question in your lesson. At this point, you're like, okay, I'm gonna ask this question, and if they get it right, then we're gonna go left, and if they get it wrong in this manner, we're gonna go straight, and if they get it wrong in that manner, we're gonna go backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So it's those key moments of knowing when I need to put some movement in my direction based on the reaction of the
little micro tests, just to gauge. And I like that he's blunt and honest with them, and it just again kind of sets the whole tone for what he's bringing to the table here. And again, whenever he starts making the spider dance and everything, and go on the trapeze, like it's pretty cool and funny. And then he's like, "Think it's funny, do you?" The laughter died away almost instantly, because he's using it to prove a point. He's doing that as a comic thing to get them to. He's kind of baiting them a bit, right?
Right.
Hey, let's do these silly things, but he's also kind of working not just magical theory muscles or brain muscles, but also like emotional intelligence that goes along with it type muscles. And I just don't think you get that in classes very often of, hey, it might look silly, but think if that was your brother, or think if that was you. Like, that's not cool. Like, it's funny because it's harmless to you right now, but the minute it's not, you realize it's horrific, and there's just no way you would be exposed to that without knowing that.
Right.
So I
don't know.
Again,
I agree.
Highly effective way of kind of teaching that emotional quotient EQ lesson. So really good stuff. So then after they kind of go for a little while, and they get to the killing curse, right? And he's like, "Not nice," he said calmly. "Not pleasant," which that right there made me think of Gollum a bit. No, not pleasant, not nice, precious, just a little bit. But then he goes on to say, "And there's no counter curse. There's no blocking it. Only one known person has ever survived it, and he's sitting right in front of me." I remember when I was reading this chapter the first time, that stood out to me as like, that is cool. Like, just the way it all builds up to this, and it clearly, the killing curse had to be last, and it just always stuck with me as a just awesome way of presenting the information that this is what Harry's parents were killed by.
And I think we've gotten lax about our memory with that. After, we're 3.5 books in. We haven't seen it since book 1. We only heard about it there. And, the boy who lived, and it was a big deal. But by this point, we're very desensitized to that. So this was a really good way to remind us that, the fact that he lived is a really, really, really big deal.
Yeah, totally. I was going to say, the only thing that we've gotten is like in book 3 when he was dealing with the Dementors, and they kind of reference that here, but that's not the main story of that, really. That's not like the main focus of what we're getting from that. That's kind of like a side thing just to get a little information, but it's more about Harry just struggling with the Dementor than anything.
And I think, like, this isn't just about Harry remembering that, or even the readers remembering that. This is about everybody, the class remembering that people don't survive this. It's called the killing curse for a reason. You can't stop it. You can't do anything about it except this guy. So he's one of your friends, but he's it.
Yeah.
Ever.
There's still something special. Even though, he's a normal kid. We all like him. Sometimes we don't.
Something special happened to him.
Right, yeah.
Like
let's not gloss over that it's a big deal without making it like putting him on the spot of being a big deal, if that makes sense. It's not overly showy.
It's less about him and more about what happened to him.
Yes, which would be not really well done if it was Lockhart. I'll just say that.
Okay.
So after the fact, after the class, they were talking about the lesson. Harry thought as though it had been some sort. So after the class, basically they all left the room and it was silent. And then they get out in the hallway and like everyone just starts talking, right? And Harry is kind of seeing this and he's like, they were all talking about the lesson, Harry thought, as though it had been some sort of spectacular show, but he hadn't found it very entertaining, and nor, it seemed, had Hermione. So I like that we're getting some, Harry's kind of upset by what he saw. And we learn it's actually Neville that's upset and Hermione is kind of being empathetic towards him.
But the fact that they both realized that this is more than just, wow, that was like deep, man. Mm-hmm. It was personal.
They were closer.
And upsetting.
Yeah, Harry was at least closer to having familiarity with it. Yeah, he was put a little bit on display, but not really, as we kind of just talked about. Right. But he does understand the ramifications of what these mean. And I think a couple more times of things like this, the rest of the class would too. And it kind of comes back to that, think it's funny, do you? The laughter died almost instantly type thing. This is their first exposure to anything this real. This is not Harry's first exposure. This is not Hermione's first exposure. It's been real for a while. So my next thought, again, kind of sticking on the Moody train, if you will. Apparently, Professor Sprout told Professor Moody, I'm really good at herbology, Neville said. There was a faint note of pride in his voice that Harry had rarely heard there before. He thought I'd like this, and then he shows him the new book. Just good stuff. Again, Moody throughout, really, really good. You see that it clearly affected Neville, and you kind of went out of your way to, help him cope with whatever he's dealing with, and make him feel good about the one, because we've seen Neville's lack of confidence, and how that really kind of plays into him not being good, being forgetful at things, and give the guy a little confidence, and he's dangerous. I mean, we've seen that. Like, he stands up for his friends when he knows he has to. Give him some confidence and watch out. And I like that Moody's kind of taking the route he is with that.
I agree. I like what happens for Neville here a lot.
Yeah.
I also like social justice Hermione.
Yes.
I think it goes quite along with what you were saying about Neville sticking up for his friends. And I think Hermione takes it too. I'm sticking up for the underdog.
Sure.
I see something that's not right. They don't have a voice to speak up for themselves, so I'm going to.
Sure.
And I mean, she's, a kid in school, so she might make some mistakes along the way. But for the most part, she's doing the right thing.
And I really think we've kind of seen that since we were introduced to her. If you really put the pieces together, she's done that for Neville since we met her, right?
That's
she
true.
was helping him find Trevor the Toad, and she's always been there to try to help defend him in potions. She hasn't done it as openly because she knows she's going to get ridiculed and put down by Snape, and it just makes things worse for everybody. Not that she's afraid of Snape, it's more she just knows it makes it worse to stand up publicly.
Is that why she's friends with Harry and Ron? Because they're like the underdog, and she's
I guess
taken them under her wing, at least academically.
Yeah, they need her, and I think she needs them too.
Yes, I agree.
And, but yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any surprise that she's doing this. We've seen her kind of, have this leg to stand on since they almost got shot with the stupefies in the woods clearing. But I think it's been a part of her character, just kind of without a real thing to kind of put it towards, aside from little things here and there. But it doesn't feel out of character at all that she's building up this organization to do something about it.
Agreed. It looks like you've got one last note here about this chapter.
Yeah. Upset Hedwig.
First of all, she's back.
She's back. Okay, so it was before Halloween. Hedwig Watch 2018 is over. We're okay.
3-week sabbatical. That's not too bad.
It's not too bad. It's just funny that, the narrator had to, constantly, tell us a little bit here and there, where is she? Where is she? It was a day ago.
She's still gone, because she's only been gone 3 weeks, but it's been 250 some odd pages or something ridiculous.
Right. Yeah,
4 years later.
Harry's a bit short with her, and he's basically like, I don't have any food for you. You're going to have to go to the owlery to get a snack or whatever. And, like, who knows, pet the bird. Just say, hey, thanks for whatever effort you went through. I've been worried about you, because he hasn't stopped talking about her.
Right.
Show some appreciation.
Yeah, I agree. That was not very nice, Harry.
Not ill done.
I agree.
Poorly done. So, it is time for 5 burning questions. Let them rip.
Question 1. Which classes got to see the Unforgivable Curses?
I have a feeling that this is the youngest class that got to see it. But that's mainly because of the way it was kind of presented. It seemed like pushing it 2 levels down, because he said 6th years would be the ones that would be allowed by the ministry to see curses in general. Not necessarily the forgivable curses. But if we take that, 2 levels down, that's kind of like hey, we're pushing it, but at least we're getting 2 7ths more of the school to get exposure. I really don't think you're going to show this to first years on day 1 or, first week. Maybe year 2. I could be convinced that year 3 saw it as well, but I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts. One, in response to your answer, possibly year 3, because he said that this class, the 4th years, were woefully behind in curses. So that would lead me to believe maybe year 3. Part of me wonders if any other class at all got to see it, if it was just done for 4th years or even just for the Gryffindors.
For Harry.
Because Harry's in there and it's, the person sitting here. I don't know so much about that, but in the other classes, if he did the same thing and he's like, only one person has ever survived and he's here at school with us, doesn't have quite the same effect of he's sitting right in front of me. But
it's definitely less dramatic, but it's still effective, I think. I think it was, especially for a different Gryffindor class. He's like, and he sleeps in your house.
Right.
Him.
So yeah, I think I agree that it's definitely 4th years and up for sure, because I think also Lee Jordan and the twins' response to their first class with him
feels like it was to a very similar type of class.
Yes, I think this stems from that, definitely.
So maybe, that was his rough draft. That was his warm-up, his dress rehearsal before the big presentation for Harry's class.
Sure, sounds good. Question 2. What's worse, the Imperious Curse or the Cruciatus Curse?
Now that's a tough question. Having
investigative journalism here, asking the tough questions.
Having all of your mobility and everything controlled by somebody else for whatever purpose is pretty frightening, I think. Because you're probably still somewhat cognizant of what's going on. I would think. And seeing yourself do some of these things, I don't know, maybe it's more of a Ginny being possessed in book 2 thing where she would just wake up after the fact. I don't know. But as opposed to just pure excruciating pain, I'm going to go with the Imperious Curse can be worse. That's kind of a cop-out answer. I think it definitely can be worse than the Cruciatus.
I think for me, and I'm a big wimp, so take this with a grain of salt, I would rather have the Cruciatus Curse put on me than the Imperious Curse. Because 1, theoretically, curse when you least expect it. So I don't have to worry about it coming. So that's 1. And 2, no matter how long it lasts, there's an ending. They can't hold you in that forever. It's just until they, but Imperious can last how long? That spider did all kinds of things. And Moody talked about different people being imperialized for who knows how long. So imagine having to live day after day after day after day, knowing that you're doing all of these terrible, horrible things. And you can't do that idea of not being in control. And you know me, I'm a bit of a control freak. So that idea of not having any control over my own body, that scares me way more than a much shorter amount of time of pain. The pain might be horrendous, but I feel like that at least, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's the Imperious Curse also brings in the threat of hurting someone else, which is kind of a different mental level of it. Because if you were forced to choose, right? You're basically saying you're going to do this to me, and I'm basically choosing which one.
Right.
The Cruciatus is local. It's just me that's suffering, and it potentially not however many other people that you could force me to hurt. And so I'm going to go with the Imperious Curse is worst.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I agree. All right. Next question. What's wrong with Neville?
Oh, man. We know he's pretty sympathetic to other people and like cares about his friends and everything. And clearly he didn't like seeing the spider in pain, and I think maybe his just overall empathy radar, his empathar was just kind of going off the rails. And I don't know, what they're seeing is potentially a little traumatic, right? I mean, and that's kind of why he's saying, I trust that you're at the level or that you're responsible and you're strong enough, to kind of see this stuff. I think your nerves are, at least Dumbledore thinks your nerves are up to snuff. And so yeah, it's challenging, but it's a whole classroom of kids. Maybe not every single one of them is necessarily, the toughest cookie around. And it's going to affect different people different ways. So I think he's just affected by it for, I don't know, just non-exposure type reasons, or it's just kind of traumatic to see, I think.
Okay. Question 4. Who are the twins talking about when they say we got to sound like we're not accusing him?
Oh, Lockhart, probably. They're going to out him, I think. No, wait, that's already happened. Maybe Percy?
Ooh, that's a good
idea. Something to do with Percy?
Maybe he's cheating on his girlfriend.
Oh, but they don't want to accuse him of it. They just...
Blackmail.
Yeah, okay. What are they going to get out of Percy?
Money. He's working.
That's true. And they do need money.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what they're talking about.
Done. All right. Question 5. Should Sirius really be heading back north?
Seems pretty dangerous. I think Harry's overreacting a bit on his reaction to it. We didn't even talk about Sirius's letter. We talked about Hedwig, which is fine.
I knew I had a question about it, so I was good.
So Sirius is coming back.
Right. By the way, FYI.
I'm sure Benji talked about it in the summary. So good job, Benji.
Hope.
I think he probably should. He needs to be careful for sure, but I also think Harry's kind of overreacting.
Yeah,
where I fall on it, and he's like blaming himself, and he's like, "Oh, if he gets caught, it's gonna be all my fault." And like,
angsty teenager.
He's a grown man. Let him make his own decisions. Yeah, it's to protect you, but at the same time, he's a grown man.
Right.
Let him make the mistake. All right, chapter Superlatives. Let's knock him out. Favorite line.
I haven't got a clue what this lot's supposed to mean, he said, staring down at a long list of calculations. You know, said Ron, whose hair was on end because of all the times he had run his fingers through it in frustration. I think it's back to the old divination standby. What, make it up?
I'm glad you brought that up, because again, we didn't talk about divination either, which is fine, because we talked about it last chapter. We didn't really need to. But I do love the old divination standby. Just make it up.
And I picked this because really, like, the next 2 pages, when they are making up all these different things, it's like, oh, look, you're going to drown twice or something. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me get trampled by a stampeding hippogriff. Like, they're all so funny, but I could not pick 2 pages.
I'm gonna lose a fight, and I'm gonna lose a bet. Yeah, because you were betting that I'd win. It was really well done. I'm kind of sad that we missed it, but I got on a little bit of a moody train, so sorry for that. It's worth checking those pages out again, just for especially when Hermione comes back in and she's like, "It says you're gonna drown twice," and he's like, "Oh, darn it! Like, let me fix that."
I love that at no point does she say, you can't turn this in. That's not how you do this. She's just like, okay, you can't say this twice. Like she knows which battles to choose.
Yeah. Well, she leaves it at, you should have just quit the class like I did, and then you would be taking something sensible, which she's right. Just drop it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to get rid of the really easy class. It's like, oh, I'm going to drop PE? Probably not.
Except that's not the really easy class. That would be Hagrid's class.
It could be pretty dangerous right now, at least.
Yeah, but they didn't know. All right. How about you?
You've got to know. It seems harsh, maybe, but you've got to know. Constant vigilance! Kind of the combination of... It's just an amalgamation of all of Moody, and I'm just a big fan of it. I like that he trusts that, that they can handle the information and challenges them with it as well. And constant vigilance is one of those terms that just stick out you could say that an HP fan is going to know you're talking about Mad-Eye Moody, and I just love it. I'm a big fan.
Okay.
So, who was the chapter MVP, Melissa? There's one right answer.
I know, because I didn't have one. And you were like, you have to pick so-and-so. Literally, guys, there's even like an arrow to my box that says you need to pick this person. Because I didn't have one. I was like, so I started thinking, I'm like, well, like, I know this person was good, but like, was there anybody else? And I got yelled at. And so, because apparently this was a very big deal, although I agree with it, the chapter MVP is Mad Eye Moody. Constant vigilance.
The honorable mention is also Mad Eye Moody. Professor Moody. Yeah, I can't reiterate why. So listen to the podcast episode that you just listened to again for more reasons.
Because reasons.
Because everything we talked about for the last however long.
And that looks like that wraps us up for today. Mm-hmm. Feel free to find us on Twitter at NotNamedPodcast. You can send us your digital owls at notnamedpodcast@gmail.com. And you can find us on our website, thepodcastthat.com, where you can find this show and all of our shows in the Podcast That family of podcasts. My recommendation for you this week is to go to our Support Us tab, click on the link that says every student must have a number 2 pewter cauldron, where we have our very own curated list of Amazon products for your very own trip to Hogwarts. Today's product recommendation is the Mad Eye Moody Funko Pop bobblehead. So go ahead and order that. When you order from Amazon through our affiliate link on our website, we get a little kickback and you get a Mad Eye Moody pop. So help us out, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Check out this podcast and all of our podcasts on iTunes. Subscribe, like, and rate and leave comments there. Listen to our podcast on Radio Public. Download it on your phone. It's free, easy to use, and helps listeners like you find and support shows like ours. When you listen to any of our shows on Radio Public's Android or iOS app, everyone benefits.
We'll see you in 7 days when we discuss chapter number 15.
Beauxbaton and Durmstrang. Stay imaginary.
Thanks.
It's the holiday season, and whoop-de-doo and dickory-dock. And don't forget to put out your sock, cause just exactly at 12 o'clock, he'll be coming down the chimney down. We truly appreciate the time we get to spend talking about our favorite stories with you. From our family to yours, the podcastthat.com wishes you all a magical holiday season. And as always, stay imaginary.